Pure energy. Pure energy.
What's happening, folks? It is Monday in my world. I'm not sure about you, but man, we woke up to some frost on the ground today, and that shit was nasty. I don't care for the frost. In fact, I prefer it to be like 90 degrees and 90% humidity. That's the way I like my weather. Sunny and hot. So I'm waiting and longing for the summer to return. And here we are again to talk more about lithium batteries, more specifically FPV Power. And why FPV Power? This is one of the questions. Actually, there's going to be two more parts. This part, and which we're going to discuss basically why FPV Power is such a interesting buy. And then the last part is going to be charging your batteries, and we're going to discuss solar charging, because that was one of the hot topics, whether or not you can actually use solar charging for your kayak batteries and while you're out on the water. Well, to kick this part off, look, FPV Power. Why is it such an interesting buy? These batteries come in an array of amp hours, anything from 7, 10, 17, 50, and a 100 amp hour combo. And I'm only talking about this specific model, the ones that are encased in waterproof packaging. And why am I talking about those? Well, because that's an entirely separate line that FPV carries that is specific for kayaks. And they're specific to kayaks because of the way that the entire system is created. And we're going to go into more detail about that. These batteries here are all IP67 rated, so they're waterproof. I can't remember exactly what that rating is. I think it's X amount of meters for 30 minutes or an hour or something like that. But it's IP67. You guys can look that up. I'll probably post it like right there. Is it there yet? Okay. All right. And what's really awesome, and I know I pointed this out the other day, but these connectors here, right? All the batteries that they have come pre-wired with these connections. Why? Why do they come pre-wired? Well, because honestly, to have that plug-and-play system and know that all of the components are going to be protected is number one. All of these connectors are 60 amp rated. That's pretty freaking high, okay? On boats even, sometimes you'll find the smaller trolling motors, like 50 amp trolling or 50 pound thrust trolling motors, being installed with like 15 and 20 amp plugs. That is really small, really tiny, and honestly, I've melted a few. I'm sorry, my daughter has melted a few. She likes to run that trolling motor at full blast. Anyway, so the connectors are a plug-and-play system, and that's what makes the FPV Power so dang unique. When you're speaking about a system that's built to mesh together, a lot of times you have to put thought and engineering into how you're going to get all these pieces to work and talk and live cohesively inside of this battery-powered ecosystem or universe. And one of the really cool ways that they make this happen is through the use of a power distribution hub. You guys might have seen something similar in other products, but this one actually uses a wireless remote in order to turn on and off 4 ports out of the 6 ports that are on the power distribution center. Now, the ports that are, like I said, there's 6 ports. 4 of them can be turned on and off just with the use of a wireless remote, and then 2 of them are constant on. The ones that are constant on, you'll probably want to use for like if you are using a motor, and maybe if you're using a power pole. Okay, let's say, or a fish finder. Those are the things that maybe you want on all the time if you're using your kayak. And then the things that you may want to turn on and off could be something as simple as LED lights, a 360 light, a safety light, or something like that you only want to run periodically, maybe only at night. In addition to the power distribution hub, one of the things that I find extremely unique to FPV Power is an actual power meter, okay, a voltage meter, battery meter for lithium-ion batteries. That's not something that you're going to find in a lot of products out there. In fact, it's very difficult to put a meter to a lithium-ion battery. Those of you that have been using lithium-ion batteries know that when a lithium-ion battery dies, it dies. There is no, it's like it'll show power, 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 dead.
None. Kaput.
Right? Well, in this case, what they've done is they've come up with a way to give you an exact readout of how many amps not only you're using, but how many amps are left in the battery. And you do have to reset this meter after you charge your battery, and that's maybe a small inconvenience for something as awesome as being able to read your power output and reserves. Some of the other things that FPV have come out with, they have a 28-pound trolling motor that's built specifically to be used with their power products, and it's a plug-and-play system for Hobie, which is very cool because I know you guys have seen those really whacked out, like, I'm just gonna say it, the water snake, I think is what it's called. It did fit the bill for, at the time, but why not progress into something even better? And with this trolling motor, they have a Hobie specific mount, and it locks directly into the cams. This is an actual mount that fits within the cams, and it also has a pivot point, so that, let's say, if while you're using the motor should hit something, the motor will actually pivot at that point, so that you're not going to knock something loose in your cassette. Regulators, how about regulators, man? Let's say within your system you have a 50 amp hour battery, a 17 amp hour battery, and a 7 amp hour battery. The 7 amp hour battery is being used to run maybe some LED lights, and then your 17 amp hour battery is being used to run your fish finder and your power pole. Let's say your power pole, or let's say your battery, you're fishing for an entire day, and your battery starts to consume, or you've consumed enough power to where now your battery is only really registering like 11 amps. Okay, a lot of times your fish finder will turn off. It will see that reduced voltage and just cut off. That's a protection within its own system. But with a regulator, what the regulator will do is constantly send 12 volts to the fish finder, no matter if you get a spike from your power pole mount. You remember I talked about, you hit that button and sometimes you might see anywhere from a few amps to multiple amps as far as a current draw. Well, with that regulator, it'll always send a 12 volt source of power to your fish finder, so it does not cut off. And it will not cut off until your battery is completely dead. Okay, at the point that your battery starts to show 11 volts out of a 12 volt system, you're probably going to end up with about a quarter to 1/3 of your power reserve left. So having that regulator for something like your fish finder is super important, in my opinion. And here's what I've decided to do. Okay, I have been fighting within myself to figure out what kind of product selection I'm going to bring from Mariner Sales into my world. And what I've decided is to go full FPV Power with my Bonafide SS127, and I'm gonna go ahead and just go nuts, man. I'm gonna build a kayak that has every single power option available, so that we know exactly how all of these components work together, and what could benefit you as the end user. Next episode, we're going to talk about charging these suckers up, what we use to get them juiced, and whether or not solar is a viable option. We'll check you later.